Hello everybody and welcome back to another ZENLESS Zone video. Today we are going to be doing a tier list. We are going to be ranking all of the current characters in the game in a tier list format, ranking them from S to D tier. Now take this whole tier list with a grain of salt. There is no definitive answer and everything in this is purely subjective and open to change, and I'm sure as we get later into updates a lot of these rankings will change. But I do just want to give you a general outline on some of the characters I think are better or worse in my personal opinion. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into our video. Also, quickly before we do that, I should just let you guys know that currently ZENLESS Zone Zero is having a huge giveaway. Because they reached 50 million global downloads, they are actually giving away 1,600 polychrome to every single player. And all you have to do is get to internet level 1. So feel free to download the game now using my link in the description. But anyways, thank you to Hoyoverse for sponsoring this video. And let's get right into our tier list. First up, let's talk about the first character you get in the game, Anby. She is going to be an electric stun type character. In fact, she's the only stun type character that you're gonna get early into the game. The only other two options are both 5 stars, and if you do not get them on the standard banner, this will be your only stun option. And that alone makes her very valuable. If you don't know how stun works, essentially the character has an HP bar and a daze bar. The daze bar is a very important meter because once you get that to max, you're able to go into like a free flow state where you swap out all your characters, they do huge damage, and there's an increased damage multiplier on the enemy as well. So it's very important to raise that stun gauge, and Anby is great at doing that. She deals high amounts of electric damage and pairs really well with characters like Rina, and is probably one of the better characters in the free-to-play team that you get early on, and for that, I'm gonna put her into the A tier. Next up, let's talk about Nicole. So Nicole, she is the only ether character as of time of the game right now. Now we are getting one later in the 1.0 update, but as of right now, she's the only ether character. And the unfortunate thing about that is that her core skill actually all bases around increasing ether damage for your squad members, which as of the current game state is not applicable to any character in the game. So as of right now, she is not the greatest character of all time just because of the lack of ether characters. But that being said, she still does other amazing things on the field. She's able to apply a defense shred debuff on all the enemies and increases the damage they take by quite a large margin. Her skills are also really fun as well. They kind of work like a venti suck effect where you pull all the enemies in and you can even corrupt them. So for that reason, we are going to put Nicole in the B tier. And to finish off our starting units, let's talk about Billy Kid. He is the last of the 3 free units you're going to get at the very start of the game. He is a physical attack type character. Now he is another character that suffers from the lack of team availability at the moment. As of time of recording this, there is only 4 physical characters in the game, and 3 of which are attack type characters. So, as of right now, Billy does not have a lot of great synergies other than within the Cunning Hares. Billy's kit is extremely bland. It's basically just deal a crap ton of damage with almost everything. Billy is pretty good in AoE situations where there are lots of enemies because a lot of his basic attacks shoot in a large AoE area. Although against single target enemies or boss type enemies, I think he really suffers in combat. So for that reason, I'm going to put Billy in the C tier. Next up, let's talk about Corin. Now, Corin is another physical character who suffers from lack of team availability at the moment. Corin works really well with stun type characters thanks to her additional ability, which allows her to deal 35% more damage to stunned enemies. This makes her and the Wolf a super good pairing since they come from the same faction, so Corin will be able to get her additional ability and deal all that more stun damage. However, if you don't have a Lycaon, then I highly suggest against building a Corin. Her attacks are pretty entertaining to watch as she mows down her enemies with a huge chainsaw, but as an attack character, she's just not as good as some of the other ones, which we're going to discuss later on, and that's why we are going to be putting Corin in the C tier. Next up, Ben Bigger. That's literally his name, Ben Bigger. Anyways, Ben is the only defense character in the entire game. Now, Ben is really unique because he's the only character in the game that I believe has a unique interaction with another character, being Koleda, who he significantly improves the damage of if they are paired together. Outside of that pairing though, Ben is still a pretty decent unit. His core passive gives his whole team a shield, which if you struggle with the content in this game, that can be very useful. While the shield is active, all your party actually gains 16% crit rate, so this makes Ben also somewhat of a buffer as well. However, that being said, Ben does feel really clunky to move around with on field, and he is noticeably way slower than every other character in the game, and you will definitely feel that while playing him on field. And for those reasons, I'm going to place Ben in a safe B tier. Next up, let's talk about Ben's best pairing, which is Koleda. She is another stun character, which already by itself makes her value go through the roof because stun characters are very valuable in this game. Her additional ability actually makes it so when the target is stunned, all your chain attacks actually deal 35% more damage, and you can stack this up to 2 times in a row. So she is also somewhat of a buffer in that aspect. She also just has a ton of synergy in the game right now, and it honestly feels like you can fit her into any team with any type of fire type unit like Soldier 11 or Ben, or you can fit her into teams with people from her own faction like Grace and Anton, for example, and she provides a ton of value. And for that reason, we are going to put her in the A tier above Anby. Next up, let's talk about Anton. Anton is an electric type attack character. Anton can provide a lot of damage with his EX special skill, which when you have it up, you enter a mode called burst mode where you can just continuously use his drill to attack enemies as it slowly depletes over time. The only problem is that when this isn't activated, he really does not deal all that much damage. He is very reliant on his EX special skill to do any damage at all. And for that reason, I imagine he's going to be a character later on that you're going to want to build with energy regen. That being said, because of the sheer amount of damage of his EX special skill and the synergy he has with other electric type units such as Anby, Rina, and Grace, that makes him a very valuable unit. So for me, he's kind of a unit that hovers between B and A. I don't think he's as good as some of the better stun units in the game, but I do think he's at least at the very top of the B tier. Next up, Soldier 11. Soldier 11 is a fire type attack unit who currently has a ton of synergy with a bunch of different characters in the game. One of her best ones being Koleda. Lucy's another really good one. She has a ton of synergy in the game at the moment. One of the reasons she works so well with Koleda in specific is because her core skill actually allows her to deal additional damage to stun unit, making her a really good character to pair with other stun characters. She has a pretty unique playstyle where you actually have to time her attacks right in order to get the fire damage from them. So she can be a little finicky until you actually learn how to play her correctly. But once you do, she is a very solid unit. Her EX and her chain attack and ultimate all deal crazy amounts of fire damage. She is a very fun unit to play, and I would put her in the A tier. Well, we don't have any S ranks yet. Let's change that. Next up, Ellen Jo. We're setting the bar here high because Ellen Jo is by far our best character in the game. As of current release, she has the highest damage output in the game, has the best team in the entire game being the Mono Ice team consisting of her, Lycaon, and Soukaku. She has the strongest self-applied buffs in the entire game and is the only ice damage dealer that we have right now, making her incredibly valuable. Ellen's kit works all around her mobility, and the way you use her dash attack is very important to her overall kit. You're going to enter roaming state, and then you're going to do ice damage with her scissor attack, and then you're going to gain 1 point of flash freeze, which allows for your basic attacks to do ice damage as well. If you have her additional ability, you can get even more ice damage buffs. Her EX, chain attack, and ultimate are all just crazy high damage scaling attacks that do ice damage and apply the frozen state to enemies, which in my opinion is one of the best effects in the entire game and has some of the highest damage potential with the shatter effect. And that's why Ellen is probably the most unanimous S tier I've ever seen. Next up, the ultimate furry, the wolf, who is the best stun character in the entire game. This guy does about everything you would want from an ice stun character. He shreds ice resistance. He increases the stun bar from 150% to 185%, which is absolutely ginormous because that increases the damage multiplier, and that is a ginormous buff. He also has access to the best team in the entire game, as we stated before, being Ellen Joe, himself, and Soukaku. Even outside of that team, he is still incredibly valuable as an ice stun unit and can work on a variety of different team comps, and that's why the Wolf is going to be our second S tier unit. The last of the big three ice type team is Soukaku. Soukaku is an ice type support character who provides a lot of support, what do you know? With her EX skill, Fly the Flag, she is able to give huge damage buffs to your allies. In fact, she can provide up to 1,000 flat attack buff to any of your allies. The only problem with this is that to get it up, you need these stacks of something called Vortex. And the only way to get Vortex stacks is by doing your EX special attack, your chain attack, or your ultimate ability, which can take quite a bit of time to get up depending on your situation. Also, if you do have her additional ability, she does apply an extra 20% ice damage to that buff as well when using Fly the Flag, which is really, really nice. Another problem I noticed when using her EX skill is it does leave you on field for quite a bit of time, and it's not like Soukaku is a gigantic damage dealer by herself, so it can feel a little sluggish to use her at times. And Soukaku isn't as universally good as a support as the Wolf is, and that's why I would probably put Soukaku, again, hovering between B and A, but I'm gonna lean towards A this time. Next up, Nekomata. She is a physical attack type character and is the best physical attack type character among the three options you have, being the only S rank. She's essentially just a better Billy, to be honest. She covers a large area and her AoE coverage is absolutely amazing. She does suffer from some Gamba aspects with her basic attack Crimson Blade, where you only have a 33% chance to repeat the attack, but other than that, she is a very good character. She's probably the fastest character in the entire game with the highest mobility, and her EX is really cheap, meaning that you can get this thing out fast and repeatedly use it to do back attacks to the enemy, which is what you want to be doing with Nekomata. Now, this is purely subjective, but among all the characters, I find her to be the funnest to use. That's not a word. But that aside, I'm going to put Nekomata in the A tier. Next up, we have Luciana di Montetifo, or as I just call her, Lucy. She is a fire support type character and is probably my favorite support in the entire game. She has off-field damage, which is really unique. There's not a lot of characters in this game that actually do damage off-field. She is one of the only ones, and she doesn't only do off-field damage with her guard bores, but she also is a really good buffer. After using an EX special attack, she can actually give an attack boost to any of her allies. This attack boost has a maximum of 600, so it's not as good as Soukaku's, but it's still really good. Now, Lucy also has two different ways she can use her EX attack. You can either hold the EX, or you can press it. One does massive fire damage, as it's described, and the other does a little less fire damage. She is personally one of my favorite characters in the game, and a character I see having a lot of potential in the future, and that's why I'm gonna put her at the top of the A ranks. Next up, we have Noelle. I'm sorry, I mean Piper. She is the Noelle of this game, though. She is the spin to win character, where you use her ability to spin like a Beyblade. With this ability, you are able to build up stacks of something called power. And when you build up power, you are able to give buffs to your entire team with her additional ability. And she's also an anomaly character. That means that she is really, really good at inflicting attribute anomalies on the enemy. She's able to build up that little bar really, really fast. In fact, with one full spin, you can build up the entire bar and inflict the assault state. Unfortunately for her, she suffers from the fact that she is an A rank and is not going to be as good as some of the S ranks in the game. Along with that, she is also a physical character. And the physical synergies right now are not all that good, being that we don't have any stun types, defense types, or support types in the physical category right now. And unfortunately, the only other character in her faction right now is Lucy. So she is another character that suffers from lack of team options at the moment. That being said, she is a really unique anomaly DPS, and I would say she is better than the other two DPSs in the game, probably on the same level as Anton, maybe a little worse, so we'll put her in the B tier. Next up, Grace Howard. She is an electric type anomaly character, which is really unique right now because we don't have many anomaly characters in the game. She is a character who works really well with other electric type characters, such as Anton and Rina, and because of her anomaly background, she is very proficient in building up the shock meter, which is a really good effect. Her EX, ultimate chain attack, are basically just really big electric attacks that deal a ton of shock. Her EX is also super spammable because it has a low energy cost, meaning you can get it off very fast. Grace is kind of the superpower electric type, similar to Pikachu, and that's why we're going to put her in the A tier. And if Grace is Pikachu, then Rina is basically Raichu because she is the better electric type, in my opinion. She is an electric support character who is kind of the backbone of all electric type teams in the game if you do have her. She is an electric buffer who increases shock effect. She increases the pen ratio, which is kind of similar to defense shred. She has her little bang boo puppets, which cast their own abilities and can basically just go around the field attacking enemies. She's also really good in the 1.0 update because she has Anby and Anton, which are super easy characters to get early on, which you can pair with Rina to make her super powerful. And last but not least, she has some cute bang boo pets, which I think earns her either an A tier or an S tier. However, I do think she is a little less valuable than these two characters are, so we're going to put her near the top of A tier. And that, my friends, is my full tier list. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you have any disagreements? Do you think some characters should be higher, lower? I want to hear it. Let me know. Oh, and also make sure to install ZENLESS Zone Zero. I'll have a link in the description where you can go install the game for yourself. But anyways, that's going to be all for me, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.